Hello, Amajot here. I'm just checking my volumes on. Hi guys, welcome to the first self-love series. This is my new project for the year, in case you hadn't heard, and it's I'll tell you about it in a minute. If you were I'm just gonna, as usual, share this, and if you're joining, say hello. I don't know if any of you were part of the Your Voice series, if you joined any of the Your Voice series Facebook Live interviews last year, you'll know how much fun we had. And what I thought I'd do is to actually carry on with what I really enjoyed, which was talking to these amazing people about amazing people, about how you can share your voice in the world. And this is another aspect of it, which is self-love. And self-love is such a massive topic, and self-love it's just, what does it mean? Do we feel resistance to it? Why do we feel resistance to the word or the activities of self-love? Hey Erin, I'll add you in a second. And why do we maybe cringe when we hear the word self-love? You're here. So I'm getting so excited now. I have to pace myself and explain myself clearly. So I've gotten really interested in the topic of self-love, both for myself and for the people I've worked with, for the people I know, for the people I love. And what does it mean? And there's so many components of it. There's so much of it that maybe we don't want to show to other people or don't want to admit to ourselves. And maybe we are really, really good at self-love and certain aspects of self-love, like for me, self-care. And I'm curious. I want to know what other people think about this, and what can we share in the world? Like, how can we share what we best know to help everybody create self-love for themselves? Because I believe that if we can do that, then everything else is easier. Loving anybody else, helping anybody else, fulfilling our dreams is going to be that much more easier if we can start with the self-love place. So I'm going to add in, let's see if we can add in Erin. So, adding. Hello!
Yeah, hi.
We're here!
We did it.
Yeah, we did. No hitches. That was cool.
Cool.
That was cool. So I will introduce you in a second. I'm just gonna do our sharings.
Same. I'm gonna share this to my business page and my personal page.
Cool. Yeah, me too. Well, I'm already on I was gonna share it to the Heart Hub as well.
Cool.
And I think you have to make it public as well.
Right.
And okay, so one more.
I'm almost there.
Me too. So if you're joining, say hello. If you're listening to the replay, say hello. Let me know what's going on in your day. Let us know.
This is my first time with landscape mode.
Is it? It's quite cool, actually.
Yeah.
I only figured it out at the end of my Your Voice series because I saw somebody else doing it, and my gorgeous friend Jen, I just messaged her and said, "How'd you do that?" I was like, "I saw you on this live stream. How did you do that?" Hey, Sandy. Sandy's joined. So she kindly told me.
Hi, Sandy.
And so yeah, this is cool, having two people on the screen rather than just looking at myself the whole time. I can look at you now.
Except I kind of feel like I look topless because my hair's covered by my shirt.
You don't look topless from here. I can see your black.
Okay, good.
That's okay.
I'm dressed.
You are. And yes, so self-love. This is my project for this year. I feel passionately about this, not only from the perspective of my journey of letting it be okay to care for myself, whether that's on the inside or on the outside. And I've gotten quite good on the outside. So like taking a bath when I'm tired. Some stuff I'm good at, actually. Cooking well, health is so important to me. Cooking well, taking my supplements, all of that stuff. And then there's some things I sometimes still resist. And I've noticed that with the people that I work with, the people that I know, and I want to share and find out more about this. And because I loved the Your Voice series so much, I want to carry on talking to people. So this is my excuse to start talking to more people. And I chose Erin as my first guest. Thank you for joining us for multiple reasons.
Thank you for having me.
I will ask you to introduce yourself, but you know, I didn't choose Erin just because I'm biased and she's my coach, because pretty amazing, but also because Erin's taught me a lot about improving and deepening my self-love and self-care practices. And also you know, she has some pretty badass stuff and work you can do with her. And it's so funny, I was saying to a client of mine yesterday, most of my clients are English, British, or have an English accent, or you know, whatever. And badass isn't really that well used in the UK, or at least, you know, normally. And I actually called her a badass, and I was like, man, I've been spending a lot of time with Americans and Canadians. And she was like,
Yes.
God bless the Americans and Canadians. So
we in North America use that phrase pretty judiciously.
Yeah. So it's rubbing off on me. So, okay, cool. So we dive in. Would you like to introduce yourself? And then I've got some questions for you. And then if you're joining, whether you're joining now or later, feel free to ask any questions or share your own experiences as we're going along. And my aim is to, sorry if I'm jumping, but it's my first one, so I'm remembering all these things. But my goal, and I reach out to you for help with this, is to interview 300 people, men or women or children over the age of 8, with their parents' permission and attendance, about self-love. So if you don't want to comment here, or if you do want to comment here and you'd like to be part of this interview series, let me know. Message me separately about that. But also I would love to have a chat with you about this, so I can collect this data. So Erin, who are you?
Thank you for having me.
Who are you?
Who am I? Isn't that a great question? I guess most relevant to our conversation today is, who am I with respect to self-love? So I am the person whose name you see at the top of this screen. My name is Erin. I live in Canada. I use the term badass a lot. And I am a coach, sort of in the broadest sense. I like to think of myself as a business success coach, but a business success coach from the point of view of mindset and manifesting and marketing, none of which was intended to be alliteration, but also from a really holistic perspective, because I think that this does relate back to self-love. I think that the stuff that we create that is at a vibration of self-loathing or self-indifference is never as satisfying as we hope it's going to be. And so really, self-love is the foundation of my work, and was also the foundation of my own spiritual and personal development journey. So it's a topic that is it is woven into the tapestry of everything that I do. And it's something that was so fortuitous to have been the thing that I stumbled upon when I went looking for answers for the first time. So it's everything, right? Like, it's all the things.
Yeah. And actually, you know, you've made me think about my questions, because I've got like 3 questions which will be my interview questions as well. But actually, I want another question's come to me, which is, what would you like to share about, I know you've kind of touched on it, but what would you like to share about your story on self-love?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And the people who have been in my audience for a while have probably heard me talk about it, but I think that it bears repeating because, like most people finding most things, I found self-love because I found its antithesis. I found it because I was at the lowest point and I was looking for a life
Mm.
raft. And I literally, in my absolute darkest time in my life, I was divorced, I was a single mom, I was working all the time, I was sick all the time. You know, the same story that so many people who will be listening resonate with. And I knew that I needed a change and I had no idea where to start. And so I started, as modern women in the internet age begin, with Google. I Googled how to meditate because I had heard that meditation made people feel better. And luckily for me, and through no act of coincidence, in my opinion, Louise Hay's Meditations for Personal Healing was the first meditation that popped up in the Google search. And I had never heard of her before, shame on me. And this meditation gave me this permission to say to myself all of the things that I had always wished for someone else to say. And it changed everything in my whole life. It was about giving myself the approval that I felt I needed from other people and anchoring that in through affirmation. And to say that that was my entry point is to understate it grossly, because everything that I've created in my life since then, in my business, in my personal life, my healthy relationship, because I was a disaster at relationships before that, and it took some time to integrate that into my romantic relationships. Everything that I've created is because of that Google search. I fully and completely believe that. Everything that has been satisfying and worthwhile has been because I learned that language first.
Okay, okay, that's cool. And so, given all of that, what is your definition of self-love?
Well, I think like anything, it has evolved over time. I think that my definition of self-love, if you had asked me this 7 or 8 years ago, would have been using nicer language, both in my head and in my words, to express how I felt about myself. That was really, language was really the entry point for that for me.
Mm.
But I feel now, as you know, I feel more fiercely about it these days. I feel more like self-love is a conversation between the me that's sitting here and the larger part of me that exists beyond form, whatever you think of that as, your higher self or intuition. And it's a constant back and forth between the me that exists in this body and the me that, is formless and, knows a shit ton more than this me could ever hope to know. And so it's constantly referencing that and coming back to that and asking that what it needs from me right now. Sometimes it looks really messy. And as you know, sometimes it looks like creating boundaries that are really uncomfortable to create, but are in fact the most loving expression of that divinity as I experience it. So I expect that if you asked me again in 7 years, it will have evolved even further. But for me, in its purest sense, it's an open dialogue. It's trusting and honoring what I need from me first and foremost. And the faith in the fact that that makes me of higher service to my people, to my kids, to my clients, to my friends, to my partner, that's come with a lot of practice. Right? Like I didn't emerge fully trusting that making wacky decisions based on my intuition was going to serve those people the way that it does. But I've done it enough times now that I can come back to that place of faith again and again.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So you've kind of had a lot of practice in, I guess I'm just thinking at it from a point of view of somebody who hasn't spent even any time thinking about what self-love even means. Maybe they cringe when they hear the word self-love, or it feels selfish, or it feels like it's just not something, like, you know, I've seen people, if I've said the word, and it's taken me a long time to say the word, and even when I was setting up this project, I was tempted to call it, as you know, self-compassion research project, and I thought, no, I'm going to call it self-love and see what happens. And actually, I am really surprised. I already have over 30 people signed up for the interviews, and men and women and children. And it's, people want to know about it, or people want to share it and share their experiences because they feel it's important. So what would you say to somebody, and you've had this experience now, you've kind of been around it for quite a while, and you've kind of, it sounds like, and I have some experience with this obviously, but it sounds like you've kind of accessed so many areas and experienced so many and developed so many areas of your life that you can kind of see the different strands of self-love. So if somebody doesn't even know what that means, or even had the time to think about it, or maybe cringing thinking about it, what would you say to them on that journey?
Definitely. I think that, as with my own journey, I think that the place to start is language, to be honest with you, because I think that internally especially, but for a lot of us externally as well, our language around self is really fucking mean. And that was the place where I started. I started with affirmations. I started with not really believing them. And I started with the Louise Hay sort of canon. And my hook was, I love and approve of myself. And I said it over and over and over. I couldn't even tell you how many thousands of times I rolled that around in my head every time I came up with a thought of self-loathing. Because these thoughts of self-loathing, they emerge to protect us from our childhood. You know, we think that if we're modest and we downplay our attributes, our positivity, if we downplay those things, that we somehow protect ourselves from injury, from disappointment, from trying too hard. And a lot of those thoughts are just bad habits. So replacing those bad being an operative term, bad habitual thoughts with a positive hook, and recognizing, when I first started doing that, because there's a difference between a negative thought that's telling you that it's time to change course, or that something's not working, and then just those, like, you know, those old chewing gum thoughts that we're just like chewing on even though the flavor's long gone from them. There's a difference between those things.
Yeah.
But our subconscious doesn't know the difference between those things. So if we just, without any sort of judicious selection, if we just chew on those flavorless thoughts, our subconscious just believes them. And so if we can take a hook, an affirmation, a song, whatever it is, and replace it deliberately. First of all, I was shocked at how many of those habitual negative thoughts I had that didn't actually even mean anything. And it feels really awkward and uncomfortable. And like I said those things before I believed them. But eventually your subconscious does catch on and you form new habits, the same as anything.
Yeah.
It's a muscle.
And I think it's exactly that. I was talking to one of my, I had a session with one of my coaching clients the other day, and it's so relevant. I was going to write a post about this and I haven't done it yet, but I will. But it was this exact thing about habit. And I've certainly realized that over the last 6 months, and I've been doing this work for about 5-6 years now. And I actually thought I was I always thought I was good at self-care. Say hello if you're joining, by the way. We're talking self-love. I always thought I was good at self-care. And even when I was in my old job and I was traveling a lot, I was good at getting the massages. I was good at, like, manicures, keeping myself doing the things that made me feel good. And it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like they were non-negotiable. I kind of just did them. But the massages and like trips to the osteopath, I had to do because I worked so much. So it was almost kind of like a reward, a self-care reward at the end of killing myself. And
Yeah.
it wasn't, I'm just going to do it just because I feel like it. And everyone would say, oh, you know, you're really good at that. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, I just do it. But actually, it had to have a purpose. I couldn't just do it. I would never, ever book something or, you know, chill out or do something. If I was reading, it was because I'd found a beach to do it on, or after a holiday after 6 months of killing myself, or reading on a plane because I traveled so much. And I could never do it. And sometimes I still struggle now to say it's okay to just sit there and read.
Yep.
And it was this, and then even now, like, even though now I can do those things more before I need them and recognize
Yep.
I want them, there's still been habits. And I think it's great, that idea of, even if you don't necessarily believe the affirmations, you know, find a song, and it's actually about just breaking the pattern. Like, one of my favorite
Yes.
coaches, Steve Chandler, he says break it, like break whatever's going on, and do something different with it, because all it is that habit that your brain's got. And I was talking to my coaching client about, and I noticed how every time she said something that was in, like, just any comment, any sentence, she began it with a, you'll think this is crazy, or you'll find this weird, or isn't this ridiculous, but. And I just pointed it out to her, and she was like, wow. And then she was annoyed with herself for it. And this is the thing, like, self-love is not about, and it's that inner critic in us, and that kind of mean person in us that we're used to. Again, it's the habit. So it's I think it's fantastic to break that pattern, but to notice it first. When I realized how much I did this, and this was only like last year, and I realized I had a part-time job in self-abuse, and realized how much I actually did it. It's like, if I was getting paid for that, I'd be really rich now if I was getting paid for that job. And as with most of us. But it was about recognizing the habit, but then not giving ourselves a hard time. And,
Yes.
you know, and even when I've done this work in my Shine program, you know, and people are like, oh my God, I didn't realize how many times I call myself an idiot just for dropping something.
Right.
And it was like, okay, that's great that you know that. Don't give yourself a hard time. Be kind to yourself. And we often don't know what being kind means, I think.
I call that that tendency to like beat ourselves up about beating ourselves up. I think of that as creating tension on our tension.
Yeah.
Right. Like in the practice of yoga, I trained as a yoga teacher, and in the practice of yoga, we talk about, you know, if you're in a pose, for example, like pigeon pose, where it's like really kind of intense on your hips, the habit is to maybe clench your jaw, or pull your shoulders up, or furrow your brow.
I'm like doing
right?
all those things now.
No, right? I know. And,
like,
and that's what it is. It's about the awareness of it, because maybe we can't, you know, we can't force our hips not to be tight. We can ease into that. We can practice it. But if we are creating tension on our tension, we're causing a whole host of other crap to have to deal with later on down the line, or in the next pose, as the case may be. And so that's absolutely such a good point, when you catch yourself in that sort of spiral of thoughts, to just be like, I can forgive this too. I can accept this too. And not make it more of a problem. My best friend calls it not borrowing trouble.
I like that. That's nice.
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to borrow trouble anymore. I don't need it.
No.
I don't need any more. Cool. I like that. And so I know you've kind of touched on it in terms of the language piece, and definitely if you're you know, you start doing this work around wanting to be kinder to yourself, or wanting to, you know, knowing that you'll kind of spend a lot of time being hard on yourself, or people tell you to stop being so hard on yourself, because I don't think we notice it. So people tell you to stop being so hard on yourself, or you're wondering about how you can create more you know, less stress in your life and more balance, whatever that word might mean for you, work-life balance, or, you know, more space to do the things that you love to do. then it's having somebody to point that out to you can be really useful. And I think it's about the environment as well, surrounding yourself with people who kind of remind you that you know of all the good things you are doing as well, but also remind you when you are giving yourself a hard time, so that you can look at that. But what so what are, I know you talked about language. What are some of your self-love practices, or some of your favorite ones that you love to do?
Do you know, it's so fluid for me now that I have come to think of it as this dialogue, right? So a coach that we both work with, Olivia Charlet, talks about it in terms of soul cravings. And I like that language. I like that term, because sometimes it does look like solitude and time in nature and, a salt bath and, going to get a massage. Sometimes it looks like all of those things. And sometimes it looks like being really fiercely protective over my energy and what I say yes to and what I say no to. And sometimes it looks like being out with people, right? So the idea of know thyself really comes into play here. And knowing that, there are times when I tend to isolate, when I need to push myself to go out. And there are times when I say yes to too much stuff and it's too people-y, and then I need to dial back and have some solitude. So really, I think at its most distilled form, it's trusting that I know what's right for me in the moment, and then committing to honoring that. Because sometimes it looks like a big, scary investment. And sometimes it looks like travel that is not convenient. Sometimes it looks like stuff that doesn't make sense logically, or is like wildly inconvenient in the moment. And so there is like, I think that self-love has gotten kind of mainstream in the idea of like taking a bath with flowers, and it's gorgeous. And I love that too. But I think that what it comes down to is trusting that I know what's best for me in this moment, and then actually committing to doing that thing, right? Because we know that's a piece where people can be like, read a self-love quote and be like, yeah, that, but then not actually take the action. I think that sometimes is what is missing for people. They're like, I'm going to do that sometime, not today. And I think that is the disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so intuitively based. It's so connected to self.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's really what it comes down to for me, is that self-love is my connection to myself, and whatever that looks like minute to minute.
Cool. I love that. So self-love for you is your connection to yourself, and what that looks like in each moment, based on what your gut's telling you, what your intuition's telling you. And it might not be the obvious things. It might be the obvious things that we see, the external self-love and the commercial self-love, which there's nothing wrong with.
Not at all.
But actually, I really like that, because if you're having a bath or you're getting a massage and you feel guilty about it, or you're feeling some form of shame, then man, that's like poison.
Yeah.
There is no love in there. And that's where the work is.
Sometimes that anxiety is trying to tell us something as well. Right? Not that we need to earn our self-love, not that we need to earn our self-care, but I think sometimes I talk about this when I talk about it in terms of manifesting, because there are certain, steps. There's like a formula, quote unquote, loosely used, this formula for manifesting. And I think that most of us are familiar with the idea of like thoughts become things, and if I write it, then I can create it in my life, and I have to surrender it. It's, oh, I'm going to go have a bath, but we miss that action step. And I think sometimes the anxiety comes in when we've tried to skip the action step. And so it's like, that's like that intuitive nudge that's kind of niggling at us in the background, going like, I want to do this wild thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what would you say to people who are feeling that niggle, that anxiety, or that guilt, or whatever that might be, that comes along with them sometimes wanting to do these nice things for themselves?
I think firstly, ask it if it has anything to tell you, right? Like, am I missing anything? Have I neglected something? Right? So like I was saying about soul cravings, if I ask myself that regularly and I answer it, 5 or 7 times, often the first 3 are like, drink a cup of coffee in absolute silence for 5 minutes, and then go for a walk, and then have a long shower, right? So often the first 3 are like self-care, and then the subsequent ones are action steps, right? Are like, go do a live stream or contact this person or whatever. And so I think that if you ask that guilt or that anxiety what it's trying to tell you, and then commit to honoring what it says, which is often that's where people stop themselves, right? They, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't do that right now. Oh, I don't have time. I don't have money. I can't possibly do that right now. Rather than being like, how can I do some of this right now? How can I do some of this today? Right? And so you're like lying on the massage table, and it's like the thing is like, book that trip, right? If that's the sincere and honest answer from your intuition, then I just kind of go like, okay, cool. I promise I'll do that later. Can we just be here now? Right? And then I do the thing. And that's how my intuition knows that we can trust each other.
Yeah.
Is because when it tells me to do those things, now I've learned the hard way that if I don't do them, I get sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do them even when they don't make sense. And I know that for myself, when that was new, it was a lot scarier. And it still requires courage now to do like weird things. But I trust that there's good stuff on the other side of it now. So, like if you're mid-bath and something comes to you, maybe it's not sincere. Maybe it's habitual guilt. Maybe it's like you never saw your parents in any kind of relaxation, right? That's a big one for a lot of us. We don't come from families that knew how to do these things. A lot of us come from like post-depression era parents who are raised, with a certain level of ongoing work ethic, right? That like translated to, I remember my mom reading in the kitchen standing up because if she sat down, she would fall asleep. Oh, right? Yeah. I remember that from like my whole childhood.
Yeah.
And so to like look at these people that we often admire and whose traits we do want to carry through, like we can agree that a good work ethic is a good thing. But there are parts of those habitual ideas about rest that we've carried through with us. Sometimes it's just about breaking that habit, but sometimes there is a sincere action step that we have avoided taking, and we can just kind of be like, I promise I'll take it after this bath.
Yeah.
And then actually do it.
Cool. I really like that, and that's so true. Hey Jen, how you doing? Welcome to the first episode of the Self-Love series. I think Gail was here. I don't know if she's still here. Sandy was here. I don't know if she's still here. If you're joining afterwards, say hello. Give us some hearts and some love. I don't know if I see all of them, to be honest.
I can't see who's things coming up. But
yeah, we're talking self-love. What does it mean? You can comment if you want. And I love that what we were just saying about that if we have some sort of feeling or attachment, anxiety, guilt, shame, whatever, that's you know, if we're wanting to do something what we think is nice for ourselves, it could be anything. What, there is no definition of what feels good to you. It could be going for a run, it could be going for a high intensity cardio, it could be going for a walk. It's whatever it is for you. It could be chilling out with a book, whatever it is for you. But then if there is something attached to it that makes you feel a bit cringy or guilty or anxious or whatever, then it's checking in, like, you know, asking, like Erin said, asking, you know, what is it? Is there an action I need to take here that I've been avoiding maybe, or that feels like I don't want to do it right now, and therefore, you know, it's kind of bouncing against the feel good activity that we want to do? Or is it something that we're just used to, this habit that it's not okay to do this? And I think it takes a while to start to get to know that about yourself.
Totally.
And that's okay as well.
Well, and I think that something that we kind of tend to do to put off diving into this self-love in practice is, oh, I'm just not that type of person.
Yeah.
When really it's a skill that can be learned just like any other skill. Just like how to use Facebook, right? Like, I think that if we think of it as something that we can educate ourselves on and learn and practice and get better at, then it seems a lot less like it's for other people and not us.
And that, what came up for me when you said that, was confidence. That's the other thing that we say, like, I don't have it, or why does so-and-so just have so much confidence? And it comes with doing. Confidence comes with doing. Same with self-love. And you know, and I think that's, we could get into that habit again of, oh, I'm not good at self-love, or, you know, it's not really for me.
That's fine for other people, but not for me.
Yeah. And it's like,
well, and I think that speaks to what you were saying about it being so intensely personal for each of us, right? And I always say, you know, like, when people ask, am I doing this right? I always come back to this idea that there's no way to fuck it up.
Yeah.
It's self-care because you say it is. It's self-care because you have decided. So if it's like sitting around and playing video games and eating pizza, like, if that's your self-care, if that's your self-love in action, then that's what it is. And I think it's bringing a new level of mindfulness to these practices and approving of them in advance without comparing them to what other people's idea of self-love looks like. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. What I think is chill out, somebody else might think is frivolous, and that's okay too.
Totally.
Cool. So I was just thinking, because you need to go as well, don't you, soon?
We've got a little padding.
Okay, cool. So next question, and if you listen to the replay as well, if you're listening, then any comments, you know, what comes up for you guys as you hear this? Do you have an alternative version? Any challenges, questions? Give us a shout, and we'll come back and answer them afterwards as well. So when it comes to self-love, what stops you from being in that?
What stops me?
Great question. What can stop you?
What can stop me? What classically stops me in self-love? This, you already know the answer to this, but I'm totally a workaholic. I own that about myself. And so workaholism can get in the way of my self-love if I'm not super diligent about it. So I can get into working really long hours if I'm not strategic about self-love. So if it's not in my calendar, it oftentimes doesn't exist. And so that's how I get around it. It's not sexy, but I schedule it. It's in my calendar, and clients can't book around those times. And that's just, so I know for me that I'm never going to not prioritize my kids and my family. That's always going to be up there. I'm never going to not show up for my clients. That's a non-negotiable for me. And so I have to sort of, if I don't prioritize myself, like around fourth on that list, it gets it gets dumped.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the God's honest truth. And I know that the idea of like put yourself first and like that sounds nice, but I think for a lot of people who are, you know, their families of origin or their kids, like, you know, it's really hard to just like have a bath if a toddler is going to come honky tonk his way into your bath and join you. So I think that I know that this is sort of going beyond your question, but I think that the way that I get around it is by being really personal in my definition of self-care and including them in it, including my clients. Like, you know, one of my private groups, I'm planning a retreat with my clients. That's partly for me too. And my kids, right? Like, we do these things together. Not the least of which is because I want them to see the model of me prioritizing it, but definitely like working all the time and putting other people above myself. Those are, and I think that most women would say that's the thing. There was a time when, it's funny because there was a time when I was really broke. There was a time when I was a single mom with a big job and a big mortgage. And I was, you know, like, my kid never went without, but I could have used money as a block for self-love in practice. And, you know, I never really did, because I always took it that I was doing it right. And so, you know, I would get like, you know, the drugstore face masks and get like a nice, you know, $5 bottle of wine and hang out and watch a movie by myself. I used to call them party for one. And
I call them date nights.
So
yeah,
exactly. And so I know that for a lot of women watching this, they'll say, oh, I don't have time and I don't have money. But my response to that is almost always, do a little bit. Like, yeah, maybe you can't go to an ashram for a week in silence, which sounds just like so amazing, even when I say it out loud. Maybe you can't do that right now, but can you, after your kids go to bed, take 45 minutes to listen to a guided meditation and, you know, like put some coconut oil on your feet? Like, I think that was never my block. My block has always been that I work too much.
Yeah.
Come back to your question in the most roundabout way.
No, thank you, because that's a really important, I might have to add that question to the list about, you know, well, you know, what would you say to people who feel that they can't or who resist? And I think that's particularly important, certainly for me, because, you know, being a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist, I can get into this, well, it means this, and it means if I can't do that, if I can't go out and watch a movie, even if it's on my own, and go out for dinner because I don't want to, you know, or not able to spend that money right now, I can't do it. So it's that kind of almost not being able to see the bigger picture, when you can step back and say, okay, what do I need and want right now? Is it a bit of peace and quiet? Can I go for a walk instead? Is it just to watch a good movie? Can I watch one on TV and see what's on? It's thinking of things outside the box, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think too, like, a really useful question to ask yourself is like, what do I need right now? And how can I get as close to that as possible right now? Right? So like, maybe you can't get to your big vision of a spa week in Bali, but maybe you can file your nails and soak your feet in some salt water. You know what I mean? Like, I believe that there's always some form of self-love in action available to all of us pretty much all the time.
Yeah. Hey Carrie, hey Nat, how you guys doing? Carrie says family fun time and being present time is definitely self-care for me. Cool.
I completely agree with that, Carrie. For me too. Yeah.
And sometimes it's like what you said, what do I need right now? Because sometimes you just might feel a little bit low, or even if it's a little bit tired. And I know when I see my nieces and nephew, they just zing me back.
Yep.
And sometimes it's really tiring then when that carries on for 8 hours. God bless the parents. But you know, it's sometimes that is what I need. And sometimes I might feel that same level of lower energy, but then I need to honor that energy and just have the reading time or a meditation, or you know,
Absolutely.
that quiet walk in the park rather than a 3-hour walk.
Yeah.
And that used to happen for me with my walks, because I do love walking with the trees, and because I've been doing a lot of work on my website, and I've been doing a lot of like work where I do have to focus and concentrate, and I probably haven't been going for as many walks as I want to. And actually, it's okay. What I've done is I get out before it's dark and I run to the park as the sun's going down, and I get 10 minutes. And actually what I realized is that's enough. That was enough. I just needed to be outdoors for 10 minutes by the lake, by the trees. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
And Brendan Burchard talks about that concept in his book, High Performance Habits. He talks about this idea of balance and how we sort of erroneously think that we're only balanced. Like he was talking about work-life balance. And he says that we tend to think that it only counts as balance if we're spending as much time, for example, on our non-working life as we do in our working life. But that high performers, those who are successful and self-describe as successful and happy in multiple areas of their lives, they tend to focus on quality over quantity, right? The quality of the time. So your 10 minutes with the trees, right? And deciding that that counts for you.
And that's what it is. It's once I decided that, I was like, actually, I didn't need any more than that. That's all I needed today and yesterday and the day before, you know?
Yeah.
That's okay. And hey, Lakeisha, two of my favorite people.
Hi, Keisha.
Yeah, we're talking self-love, Lakeisha, and we're talking about what might happen when we resist self-love, and the things we can put in place when we think we can't or we don't have time. So it's that kind of thinking beyond, and also not underestimating ourselves, I think, because I think we already kind of know what we need, and we sometimes are always, I think always, we are doing it. We are doing it. We just don't always realize. And so we end up going back to that language thing about giving ourselves a hard time for not doing it, when if someone else stepped back and looked at it and said, but you are also having this time for yourself and you are doing this, and it's like, oh yeah. And so we spend so much time trying to get somewhere or trying to be somewhere and do something that we forget about what we're already doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that comes down to definition. And I think too that it's always worth examining, right? It's always worth being like, okay, so if I'm doing these things and it still doesn't feel like self-care, it still doesn't feel like self-love, what am I missing? What part of my life am I neglecting? What am I disenfranchising about myself, right? And oftentimes we've pushed something to the side because we think that, you know, it's too expensive, or it's not for us, or only other people do that. When really, if we started taking smaller steps towards whatever that is, if it's a big trip or a big move or whatever that is, if we started taking those steps towards it, for one thing, we would recognize that it's not actually as complex as we've made it out to be. But for another thing, we can give ourselves a little bit of relief. We can give ourselves a little bit of enjoyment of the moment when we've taken what we know to be the aligned action in the direction that we want to go.
And sorry, I got distracted because a message came through and now I've lost my train of thought.
Happen.
So, what I was going to say is, I think that's a brilliant question, especially for somebody who, if you think that you are would like some more self-love in your life, or that you're not doing enough of it, or you know, you, thanks for sharing, Lakeisha, or if you give yourself a hard time, then, you know, that's a great exercise, what Erin just said about looking at what's missing. So if you already feel like you're doing stuff, thank you, Beth. Hello. If you already think you're doing stuff, it's all of your tribe. Erin, if you already think you're doing stuff, but you feel like something's missing, write what that is down. What's missing for you when it comes to that. And something else that I think always is really useful for me is, what do I need to give myself permission for?
And maybe that's the thing that's missing. Maybe the thing that's missing is just like my own permission, my own acceptance that this is where I am right now. Sometimes that's the thing that's missing.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes the answer is nothing. Nothing is missing except for my feeling that something is missing.
Exactly. And it's I give myself permission to be okay to do whatever I'm doing today. And
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's just that. And I think just giving yourself permission lets you be okay with needing permission from anybody else, or
Yeah.
I think it's a nice override of the shoulds, which we're so good at, so easy, and that I feel like I should be, and you know, and we should all over ourselves, and then oh, Carrie, I'm part of your tribe too, precious amateur. Oh, Carrie, I'm part of yours too, Carrie. No, Carrie's such a sweetheart. So much love here right now. It's just like, this is self-love. Like, you know, surrounding yourself with people who
completely agree,
who see you for who you are. And this is very nice. So yes, and I think we should all over our
I agree.
So say, and having that little moment of, what do I need to give myself permission for, and just unfiltered, boom, boom, boom. And it's so surprising what can come up. I give myself permission to be how I am today. I give myself permission. Kelty, hi Kelty. Kelty says, giving myself permission has been one of the best things I've ever done for myself. I know, and whenever I've used it for myself or with others, it's been like, it's like an unchaining.
Yeah.
And I think that's a brilliant thing it's just reminded me as well. I think I constantly have to give myself permission for anything, to be honest.
Well, and I think too, like, I think back on some of the coolest stuff, even in the last year, that's taken place. It came because I gave myself permission to do something that maybe didn't make sense. And I think, you know, there's the fear is what holds us back from giving that full permission to do the most loving thing. And what I've realized is that there's a difference between the fear that is that sort of natural response to something that's not good for us, right? That is actually here to protect us, and the fear that's here to protect us because it doesn't know the difference between making a bold move and getting eaten by a dinosaur. And so if we can look to the other side of that fear where the permission exists, there's relief and exhilaration on the other side of it, as opposed to imminent death.
Yes. Fight, flight, or freeze response. I was doing that all weekend. Yeah. It's true. And I think it's, so if you're watching this, if you're watching it now, if you're watching it afterwards, I invite you to do a permission list. Even if you've done it before, I invite you to do a permission list, send it to me, or post it on here if you want. And it could be as generic as, I give myself permission to do exactly what I want to do today. Or I give myself permission to follow my heart even if it doesn't make sense. Or it could be as specific as, I give myself permission to go for a walk today, to get myself a manicure, to do my own manicure, I say manicure because I so badly need to do my nails. I think that keeps coming up for me. Anyway, so I give myself permission to have a break. I give myself permission to go to bed at 9 o'clock. Whatever that is for you, as specific or as whole as you want it to be, I invite you to do that.
Well, I would love to hear if some people were like, giving themselves permission for some big moves. That is really exciting for me. That would be really
Go on,
cool.
share them on here. Go on, let's do
Yeah.
it. Let's
Seriously,
do it.
a year ago, I gave myself permission to fly to New York, and it made no sense. And I did not have the time. And it was like the best thing that I have ever done. That's hyperbole, but it was really awesome.
And as you know, I gave myself permission to go to California in March. So, you know, and that was a big one for me because I know that that's going to help my work. I know it's work and it's going to help my work to grow. And I had to give myself permission though. So.
Right? And like there's all sorts of things that get up in the way of that permission, right? Especially if we're open to, you know, other people's opinions and be like, oh, well, that person doesn't really approve. So is my approval really true? Is my permission really valid?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a reflection of the fear talking, and we can give it a little love.
Exactly. So I know that you have, we could talk forever, to be honest. I know that I have to go because I have to go into Westfield, one of the big shopping centres, to do some stuff with my sister and my sister-in-law, and
fun.
We're going a little shopping trip. So, so I want to tell people that if you would like to be part of this, I want to interview 300 people about self-love. If you would like to be part of this, please tell me. I'm going to put the link in below. I've had a few glitches with it. But if it's not working, then let me know. But all of the information will be on that link. Let me do it now. If you would like to, that's not the link that I've just pasted. If you would like to explore this further, then you could. And if you would like to explore this further on your own, then you can join my Discover Shine course, which I'll put the link in for below. It's frigging amazing. It's £29 for a self-study 6-part video series with a workbook where you can go through some of this stuff, and it will definitely help your language. It would definitely help you to connect to what you know, that self-love part of you, maybe not in that language, but still connecting to what you want to give permission for, what might be missing, what are you not taking action with, and also there's some bonuses in there as well. So you'll want to check that out. And if you want to do some other self-love work or expand on that, Erin's got something as well. So would you like to share?
I feel like we should focus on yours. I feel like we should focus on your Discover Shine today.
Okay.
There's like some fat bonuses if they act quickly.
Yes, right? Yes. Okay. Look, my coach is making me talk about my stuff. So she's my coach. So the fast acting bonuses are the first, I said 5, but actually I would love to have 10 women. I've got my private membership Facebook group that I've launched now. It's called the Shine Your Light School. And it's where you come to shine your light if you're used to dimming your light, because that's kind of what we do sometimes, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's because someone told you you're too bossy or too loud or, you know, too outspoken, or you dress up too much, or you don't dress up enough, or, you know, all of the you shoulds, or you would,
too sensitive,
or you could, or too sensitive. Definitely had
that's
that
one. That's a big one.
You cry too much. Definitely had that.
Yeah.
Same. And don't take it so personally. Definitely had that one. Not personal. Yeah. So if you feel like you want to be in an environment where you can come and ask questions, but you can also share your self-love, your experiences, or your challenges, or what might be holding you back, or just to share in a safe environment where other women get you, then come and join the Shine Your Light School. And I'm also building a kind of syllabus for you, because it's a school, about what I've learned, whether it's about self-love, whether it's about being your own cheerleader, which is kind of the same thing, whether it's about, you know, how you can get out there and go and do what you want with your life, whether it's about increasing your confidence, whatever that is, you have a chance and a space to do that. And you know, somebody said to me, somebody who came on my Your Voice workshop actually said to me that, you know, just being with me in that short period of time, within the first hour, she felt safe enough to tell me what was blocking her, what she felt she would have probably held back with normally. So, you know, I will be there in that group. I will be doing weekly group coaching. I'm there to answer your questions. So, you know, I want you to believe in yourself. I want you to feel less stressed. I want you to feel that your dreams are able and you're capable of bringing them to life, because that's my dream for you. So come and join us. Come and join us, and that you get that free as part of the Discover Shine course if you buy that. It's free membership for 3 months. After that, there's going to be it's going to be paid, and it's going to be £11 a month. I'm going to be working on that page as well. So if you only want to join the group and you don't want to do the course, message me about that as well. That page is going to be up soon. Lots of information I've just given you. So any questions, give me a shout. Kelty says, I'm so glad you're doing this. I live self-love and I wish every woman loved themselves.
Kelty, like the self-love success story of a generation. She is just my love.
Well, if you would like to help me have one of the 300 conversations about self-love this year, Kelty, I would love to know that. I would love to, you know, for you to share your self-love practices. The link is going to be below. That's what I was going to do while Erin was going to be talking about her stuff, and then she made me talk about mine. So I'm gonna so I'm just gonna put that link in if you want to join the self-love interview, self-love research project with me. Oh, hey Sandy. Oh, Kelty. Well, the details are there below. So I've just put the link in below. And if it doesn't work, let me know straight away. I did have some problems with it, but it might be okay now. Maybe it's just Erin who it doesn't work for.
Maybe. That's entirely possible. I am the glitch matrix.
Cool. And it is a full moon and lunar eclipse and blue moon and a blood moon. So it could then be anything.
Yeah.
Any parting words, Erin?
Thank you for having me, darling.
You're most welcome.
You know I adore you.
I adore you too.
I love this great work that you're doing. I love this ambitious project that you have embarked upon. I know that it's going to just change lives and make the world a better place.
That's the plan. That's the plan. We have to make the world a better place. That's what it's all about.
Amen, sis.
Thank you so much for your time. I could carry on forever, as usual. If anybody wants to get in touch with Erin, how can they do that if they want to talk to you further about anything?
Facebook's an easy way to get in touch with me. I can maybe post my Facebook link here, yep. Perhaps. I think this is... I shared this so many places and now I can't find any of them. Yeah. I will. Oh, look. Oh, hi, Sandy. Hi. Cool. I didn't even know you were here. Oops. I'll And
it's a bit weird because you can't. I think the more you share it, the more you can't tell where you know who's on and where. And so apologies if we haven't mentioned your name. Drop us any comments, any questions. There's going to be more of these. Like I said, if you'd like to be part of the actual Facebook series, then let me know and we will talk and set it up. These are likely to be weekly. If I can get enough people, I doubt that'll be a problem because Your Voice series was so fun and it was so easy to collect those people. So
you're a good interviewer.
Thank you. My interviews are only as good as the interviewees.
Oh, that's overly modest.
I am good. Okay, cool. All right then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you everybody for joining and let us know what you think. Bye.